I'm Eric McKenniff, and I have a story to tell. Well, I grew up in Los Angeles, California, actually in Watts. And I grew up in a single parent home, raised by my mother. And me and my mother, we were sort of like brothers and sisters. We were best friends. And, I was her baby, her only child. And, well, although I had a normal childhood, life took a turn when we moved from the Jordan Projects to 40th and Avalon. And while my mother was trying to get me away from gangs and gang banging, she actually moved me into a neighborhood that I ended up embracing and they embraced me. I became a product of that environment. And, I was about 15, 16 years old at the time and, ran across a couple guys in the neighborhood that, they wanted me to hang out with them, and I ended up hanging out with them, and next thing you know, I was courted on my neighborhood, and courted on means I was jumped into my gang. And after that, all hell broke loose, for lack of better words. Well, right after I started, claiming or gang banging my set, I started drinking. I started drinking, smoking marijuana, and slowly but surely, my mother was losing me to the streets. I became the streets. I like to always tell people that I'm not the person I was back then, but I had to be that person in order to survive that lifestyle that I became a part of. So therefore, I started doing what gang members did: smoking, drinking, partying, stealing, selling drugs, and then I ultimately started going to youth authority, juvenile hall, and I want to say back in 91, I caught my first major case, which was attempted murder and shooting into an inhabited dwelling, and it was gang related, and that was my first, I guess you say that was my first introduction into juvenile or prison. It's crazy because, when you're going through the juvenile system, they're supposed to educate you and rehabilitate you. And in my case, it didn't do either. It actually taught me how to become a better criminal, because being in prison or juvenile, you're around other gang members and you're telling stories and what you're gonna do when you get out. And, unlike most normal people or people who's not about that lifestyle, my whole frame of mind at that time was, I'm gonna get out and do more crime, whatever that crime was. So I got out of juvenile hall, and it's crazy because I stayed out only 2 months. I stayed out 2 months and I was violated and sent to state prison, because when I was convicted in juvenile, they convicted me in adult court, which carried a prison number at that time. I didn't know it. I had an M number, which is an adult number that transitioned into an H number, which is a prison number. So when I was violated, they sent me straight to state prison at 18 years old. Well, I got out of juvenile hall and, still gang banging and stuff. And, I remember one day one of the homeboys said, like, look, we got some new licks up. This is what we gonna be doing. We gonna start running up in them banks, And, I was like, well, I'm with it, because for the most part, I was with whatever the homies was with back then. I was just whatever, So we had actually had a robbery planned for Monday. I can't remember the exact date, but Monday. And I ended up going to jail on that Friday prior to us going to rob that bank. And when I look back now, I know that was God really speaking to me, trying to, say, nah. He steered me away from it then, so I ended up going to state prison on a violation. However, during that whole time in state prison, all I was thinking about is robbing them banks, because I was hearing so much about how, the homeboys was out there just living, doing big things, all different kind of fancy cars, all the material things that get your attention, and I couldn't wait to get out. So after doing 18 months, I was released from state prison in 1994. I got out, and within 2 weeks, I was running up in my first bank. I was bouncing over the counters and snatching monies from the tellers at first. And then after that, after a few of those type of robberies, I started, going up in the vaults. I started walking the managers in the banks and opening up the vaults, and and it was a rush. And at the same time, it was like, I'm getting away with it, so why not continue? And, I had robbed a few banks at that time. And, ultimately, when you're doing wrong, they're gonna come and get you, and ultimately the federal agents came in, raided my house and took me down for armed bank robbery, and after going through trial and, all the court process, I ended up getting found guilty of 11 counts, which was 4 bank robberies, 4 counts of 924C using a firearm in commission of a crime, and 1 count of conspiracy to rob banks. And they convicted me and sentenced me to 968 months, which was 84 years. When you hear you got 84 years, you don't believe it. But in terms of federal prison time, they give it to you in months. So when they said 968 months, I looked over at my attorney and was like, how much time is that? And he told me, pointed at the paper, 84 years. And I was like, wow, I didn't believe it, but it was my reality at that time. And I just pushed forward after that. I went from NDCLA to Lompoc, USP Lompoc, which is federal prison. And that's where, my federal sentence began, and it was a long journey. I went through a lot, making it through those 26 years. I lost a lot of family members, a lot of friends, and people don't love you as much from a distance, so I went many months and years lonely, friends coming in and out, girlfriends coming in and out, it's just one of those things. And, the whole time I always believed that I was coming home, but I didn't know for sure that I was coming home. I went through all the appeal processes and all the denials, and it wasn't until 2018 when a lawyer contacted me and told me, Donald Trump just signed the First Step Act. You familiar with that? I've been hearing about the First Step Act, but I wasn't familiar with the First Step Act. And so he said, well, I can help you. And he helped me. And the First Step Act was, I was convicted of 4 bank robberies and 4 924Cs. The 924Cs is using a firearm in the commission of a crime. When I was convicted, they give you 5 years for the first one, 20, 20, 20 for each additional. So I got 65 years just on the firearms. So the First Step Act made it where they couldn't stack the guns on you no longer. So it took 20-something years for them to get it right, but they got it right. So due to the First Step Act, my sentence was reduced. I got bumped down to 30 years. You do roughly 25, something like that off of 30, but of course I lost some good time from messing up early in the game. So I ended up doing 26 years off of that 30. Yeah, so November 16, 2021, I was released from prison. And since then, to be honest with you, I've only been out 7 months. A lot of people can't believe that I did that much time because, how I communicate and, how I carry myself. I'm always in a good mood, and I'm in a good mood because I got the greatest blessing of my life. I'm free, and I value this freedom. I enjoy this freedom. I'm so grateful, and I can't say enough how blessed I am. However, what people don't see is that I did have to go through growing pains. I had to learn how to use my iPhone. I had to learn how to self-checkout at the grocery store. And it's been overwhelming moments sometimes, but at the same time, I got a great support system. I got a beautiful woman. I got a beautiful sister. I got a great support system to just let me know that I'm gonna make it. They let me know that I was gonna make it before I got out of prison, and they're here showing me that I can make it now. And at this point now, I'm proud to say after, 4 jobs, I'm now a business owner. I am Eric McKenna, and this is my story.